Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, I would argue it would not have happened but for him. He joins us on our Newsmaker line. You told me something when I was in Washington earlier this week, and I asked you, I said, well, what do you know about Susan Collins? And you basically described what I learned about her today. I was blown away, and I don't get blown away very often. I'm too cynical. I'm from New York. I've been in radio 30 years. Tomorrow I start my 23rd year on the Fox News Channel.
Well, I'm in a political system that's deteriorating. I think what you saw today, somebody stepped forward to maybe save it. The biggest winner of this speech is the judiciary, because there was a wholesale attack on the independence of the judiciary, win at all costs. What you saw today was a person embracing the rule of law, not the rule of the mob. What you saw today was a woman not being intimidated. What you saw today was a good man, Brett Kavanaugh, being saved by a strong woman. What you saw today was everything good about the Senate, good about the country. And I'll have my differences with Susan Collins going forward. But this is as close to McCarthyism as I hope I ever witnessed in my life. And if anybody turned it around, it was Senator Collins.
Senator, you had a moment in this process, too, and that moment came when they were going the hardest after Judge Kavanaugh. I don't think any of us will forget any time soon the things that this man was accused of. And I saw the outrage even with Susan Collins. That, remember, the accusation by Julie Swetnick was that, well, it's almost on a weekend basis that Judge Kavanaugh and others were routinely drugging girls, lining up in halls, gang raping them, and it happened frequently. And I know that some people brought up the issue of the judge's temperament. He addressed it in his Wall Street Journal article that came out last night. How is one supposed to act if you're innocent to the charge of drugging teenage girls and participating in gang rapes of teenage girls? I don't know what the appropriate reaction is, but I would think if you're innocent, it is one of deep anger and deep frustration. 18 days ago, nobody thought any of this of Judge Kavanaugh.
Well, yeah, I think most Americans saw a man who was fighting for his family, his reputation, his life. I did not do this. Went through a logical explanation based on a calendar that very few people in the world keep except him and his dad, and just wanted everybody to know this is not me. You're trying to ruin my life. I am not evil, and I think he reacted consistent with being innocent. But let me tell you a pivotal moment here. When the Swetnick allegation came out, it was breaking news. Allegation number 3 at a very new and evil level, right? So I saw it and I read it, and I said it made no sense to me from the very beginning that a person would go to one party where people were drugged and raped and go to 2, much less 10. That made no sense. So I called Susan. She said, this sounds bad. And I said, yeah, Susan, it's going to be this way for a while to come. Read it. Here's my take on it. Being in the law for most of my life, a prosecutor, defense attorney, and a judge, this doesn't have the ring of truth. She said, that makes sense. Why would anybody keep going back and putting themselves in that situation and their friends, not tell anybody? And you got to remember, it's Avenatti. And she worked through the process. She took each allegation on its own. She went through all the major decisions of Judge Kavanaugh and spent a lot of time talking to him. And this is I think this should be in every civics class in the country. Every high school student should probably have to listen to Senator Collins' explanation of why she voted the way she did and what the rule of law is all about.
We have an election in 32 days. To me, Senator, look, when Senator, I know how close you are to Senator McCain,
right,
who recently passed away, and I always admired him for being a war hero, and I even said I've never regretted, not a day, not a second, supporting him for president in 2008 over Barack Obama. It was the right decision then, and I stand by it today. I had a lot of disagreements when he came back and voted no on the health care repeal. I was frustrated, and I remember he said, "To hell with these people" on radio and cable TV. And I understood Senator McCain. That's, he kind of had that side of him, and I knew it really well. But he also talked in that speech, too, about civility. I don't know if there is not consequences for what has just gone on in the last 18 days. Political consequences.
Well, it's at the ballot box. I mean, so here are the consequences. A party that will do anything to maintain power should probably never have it. The best thing you can do to stop this in the future is deny them their goal of having more Senate seats, more House seats. They want power too bad. And what did Susan say? Listen, I went through the record. The allegations don't hold water in terms of him being some kind of gang rapist, serial sexual predator. He is a very reasoned, logical judge. I looked at everything they said about him. I compared it to the facts, and I'm voting yes. Here's what I want the voters to do. I want the voters to remember what the Democratic Party will do to get power, and that they're being driven by people who would assume somebody guilty simply because they don't like their judicial philosophy. Remember this, America. Do you really want these people in charge of your government?
Well, I think that's a great question. There's something you mentioned earlier. I'd never known Susan Collins that well. I know that, look, the Republican Party is not a monolithic party.
I'll set up dinner if you want to. And
I'd love to. I found somebody today that I had no idea the thoroughness under which she makes her decisions, and I respect it. I really have a deep respect. I want everybody to have their own mind. I'm not even a Republican. I'm a conservative for reasons that I hold passionate and dear. But you mentioned something earlier that this was a profile and courage for her.
Right. In
as much as you've been outside in the halls in the Senate, and you see what's going on there and all the protesting. And Maine is not exactly an expensive media market, and I know they've been spending millions of dollars in Maine to try and influence her, and groups are pledging now to vote her out of office and destroy her. And I'm like, did anybody listen to what Senator Collins just said? Did anybody want to listen? I don't think anybody wanted to hear what she said, because it was the single most thorough case for how any senator or congressman should make a decision.
Again, a good example for a civics class to look at in terms of the way a senator should act. But let's talk about the politics for a moment. Okay, I talk a lot about Sotomayor and Kagan only because I tried to save a system.
Yeah, you annoyed me on those votes, but I mean...
Yeah, I know, but
you more than made up for it.
Well, it's not, I don't think I had anything to make up for. It's okay for you to disagree with me. I'm not going to run my life around being somebody different
I'm not going to run my life around what the hell Hannity thinks. No way. That's never happening.
To be honest with you, I'm going to be true to me. Aren't you true to you?
Yes, sir.
Now,
and I wouldn't expect any less.
Let me tell you about Susan Collins. She's a moderate, pro-choice Republican from New England that represents a party that used to exist in New England in greater numbers. She is a fiscal conservative. She voted for the tax bill. She's a social moderate, and she will do things you won't like in the future, but whatever she does will be thought out and reasoned. But here's why I appreciate you talking about Susan Collins today. She has come as close to anybody in my lifetime of saving the republic from the abyss, because we're headed down where nobody would want to be a judge in the future. If Susan had legitimized this, God help the Senate confirmation process.
I agree.
God help the judiciary.
She said it. It's been in a rapid decline for 30 years.
They're trying
but I've got to say something to you, Senator.
Okay.
I don't think any of this would have happened. I appreciate
that, but I'm going to do something
without
you let
your
me just
work.
speak just for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to do something you'll never hear another politician do, probably. I'm fine. I'm fine. If you can help Susan, help Susan. They're going to try to destroy her now. She comes from a purple state. President Trump lost Maine by a few points. He won the 2nd congressional district. But Maine politics are different than they are in South Carolina. And she was not about Maine herself. She was about America. She represents the best of Margaret Chase Smith history of Maine. And if you really... Don't be fooled. She's a moderate. She's not a Sean Hannity conservative. She's a moderate, but she loves the country, and she's got more guts than most politicians and her little finger than most everybody I know in my business. She's not afraid. So help her, Sean. Tell your viewers to help her. They're killing her financially.
Senator,
help her.
I was so blown away by that speech. I would absolutely recommend that people help her. She did something She has leveled the playing field and brought a voice of sanity, a well-thought-out, intellectual, constitutional sanity that stood on core principles of presumption of innocence. It was beyond impressive to me. Let me ask you this. Tell us about Manchin. Manchin's a yes, too.
Well, Manchin's a yes. I like Joe, and, he was a yes. But Susan was the center of the storm. And I'll say something about Flake. We've had our differences. I know the presidents have their differences. But Jeff Flake also is a yes. Jeff Flake is on the other side of a lot of things with Trump, but he rose to the occasion and say, listen, I want to hear more, but I'm inclined to believe what I believe. I want to hear from Dr. Ford. He listened. He also listened to Kavanaugh. And the process that Flake and Susan created is going to make Kavanaugh a better nominee, more legitimate nominee. So I want to thank him, too. But at the end of the day, this is about a person, a single person who is sort of the odd person out in politics, rising to the occasion and being a giant. And to the extent I did my part, thank you. I wanted to stand up for a good man because I've known him for 20 years. I wanted to let everybody in the country know how despicable, in my eyes, he was being treated, and that they have such
Senator,
a double
this was
standard.
your finest moment in all the years I've known you.
Good. But
and
Susan Collins,
we'll have more.
Her final.
You're gonna join us on Hannity tonight. We'll have full reaction. It looks like the vote takes place tomorrow at 5. Thank you, Senator Lindsey Graham. It wouldn't have happened without you, in my humble opinion.